This lesson is going to continue the work with parallel lines cut by a transversal. So we're going to start this lesson with strictly numeric examples, meaning we are just going to find angle measures. So before, in Unit 1, we would give you a set of 4 angles, and I would give you one and you would find the other 3, because we knew that angles that were across from each other were always vertical, so they had the same angle measurement. And angles that sat side by side along a straight line, if we were to cover this up, that would give us a linear pair. They would total 180. So if you knew, for example, how big angle 2 was, you could take 180 minus angle 2 and find that measurement. Now what's going to happen is we have 2 circles, 2 bubbles. So I'm not sure if yellow, yeah, all right. So you have an angle at the top and an angle at the bottom. And we already have talked about that these angles slide on top of one another because they correspond. So 1 corresponds to 5, 2 to 6, 4 to 8, 3 to 7. And so once you know one angle measurement, we're going to be able to find them all. They also all have their names. We have our corresponding, our alternate interior, our alternate exterior, our consecutive interior, or our consecutive exterior angles. So for this particular example, we tell you that angle 7 has a measure of 85. So one of the simplest approaches when you are given these scenarios is what I call the checkerboard approach. So if you know that a checkerboard is made up of red and black checkers, if I were to start up here in angle 1 and turn that into a red checker, I know that black checkers have to go beside it. And you can use any color. I'm just using red and black. And that the red would go on the diagonal. Continuing that checkerboard pattern, 6 would be beside it, so it would be black. 5 would be diagonal. 7 would be diagonal, so that 85 is a red checker. And then 8 would be black. What that allows us to know is everything that has the same color checker, they are all the same angle measurement. Anything that has the opposite color checker is going to be supplementary to it. And I have all of that at the bottom of this paper. So if they have the same color or dot or checker, they're considered congruent. If they are opposite colors, dots, or checkers, they're supplementary. They always equal 180. And angles which will have the same color dot are corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior. Also, your vertical angles would also fall into that category. The ones that will be opposite will be your consecutive or same side interior, consecutive or same side exterior, or the ones that sit side by side on a linear pair. So going back up to this top example, I know angle 7 is 85. It's a red checker. It's asking about angle 1, which is also a red checker, so therefore it has to be 85 degrees. Now it asks us to identify, well, who is the transversal? Well, if R and S are the 2 parallel lines, then T has to be our transversal. And then what would be the name for these? If I place this 85 up here in angle 1, what would be the name of those 2 angles, just to refresh and make sure that we still know our names? They are on opposite sides of the transversal, so that means they're alternating, and they are outside the parallel lines. So the interior would be the part inside, the exterior would be the 2 that are outside. So they would be alternate exterior. So I'll do one more, and then I'll have you try one. So this one, we have M and N are the 2 parallel lines. Angle 4, we are equating that to be 128 degrees. Angle T is crossing through, so therefore, line T is crossing through, so that would be our transversal. We're asking about what angle 5 would have to be. So if I continue with the idea of my checkerboard, if I put a checker on 1 and 4 and 5 and 8, and a black checker on 2 and 3 and 6 and 7, giving me just that visual approach to the checkerboard, I can see that the 128 is going to go everywhere as red. So therefore, angle 5 has to be 128 degrees. Now, why are they 128 degrees? They are on opposite sides of the transversal, so that makes them alternating, but this time they are between the parallel lines. So they are alternate interior. Now, it says using that same value, knowing that angle 5 and angle 4 are both 128 degrees, What are these other angle measurements? Well, all the ones that are red are going to be 128 degrees. But how are we going to find all those black checkers? The black checkers are supplementary. So we're going to take 180, subtract our 128 degrees, and that's going to leave me 52 degrees left over for all of our black checkers. So all the remainers will be 52. So now filling in our angle measurements, angle 6 would be 52 degrees, angle 3 would be 52 degrees, and angle 8 would be 128 degrees. So take a moment, pause the video, and you try example 3. So I hope you've taken a moment to pause the video. Now let's check your answers. So with number 3, we have told you that angle 8 is 78 degrees, and we've asked you to find angle 7. And we've rearranged where each of the angles are just so that you didn't get in the habit of associating each numbered angle with a certain location. T is still our transversal, and this time the two angles, we have angle 8, we're looking for angle 7. They are between these two parallel lines, but this time they're on the same side of that transversal T. And so since they're on the same side, they are consecutive. That means they're supplementary. They total 180. So we take 180 minus that 78. That leaves me 102 for angle 7. So their names are consecutive, interior. I would also take same side, interior. That would also work. And so now equating, everything that had a red dot would be the 102. Everything that has the black dot would be 78. So that means that all three of these angles, 1, 2, and 5, are all black dot angles, so therefore they're all 78 degrees. Now, this number 4 has you paying attention to where the parallel lines are. So in number 4, we tell you that A is parallel to B, but S and T are not parallel. So I challenge you for a moment to pause the video and see what you think would happen with these when I tell you that S and T are not parallel. And then we'll come back and we'll talk and see what you decided. So hopefully you paused the video and you checked and gave yourself a challenge. Maybe you wrote in pencil or did it on a separate sheet of paper or did them in your head. But what you have to realize is when we have two different transversals that are not parallel to one another. Essentially what that means is we have these parallel lines. This would be our interior, exterior would be outside, and it creates two problems. The one along transversal S and the one along transversal T. So it essentially creates two different checkerboards as you're going through and doing these. So when you're looking, that 60 will only equate to all the angles over here along transversal S. That 85 will only affect all of the angles over here on transversal T. So if I'm doing my checkerboard, 85 would come across, and then it would come on the diagonal, and then it would go on the diagonal again. If I take the 180 minus the 85, that leaves me 95 degrees. That's going to go on all of my opposite diagonals. So that's how to deal with transversal T. To do with transversal S, the same idea. 60 is going to vertical with angle 9, and those two are going to move up and be up here in the spot where A is sitting and in the spot where angle 12 is sitting. And then on the other diagonal, you're going to take the 180 minus your 60, and that's going to leave you 120 degrees for my other diagonals. So how'd you do? What'd you think? Is that what you got? So I like to write on the picture and figure out what everything is, and then come over here and fill everything in. So angle 1 would be 85. Angle 2 would be 120. Angle 3 would be 95. Angle 4 would be 95. Angle 5 would be 95. Have to find them all. Angle 6 is 85, while 7 is 95. Angle 8, jumping over to transversal S, is 120. 9 would be at the 60 degree along transversal S. 10 is 120. 11 is 120. and 12 is 60. So those are numeric examples and how to apply all the names of your corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, and consecutive exterior to numeric problems, remembering that these three scenarios corresponding in the alternates are always congruent angles, they're always equal, and they have the same color checker when you make that checkerboard. And consecutive interior, consecutive exterior are always supplementary, they total 180, and they always have the opposite color or checker. So that's the lesson, and please check Schoology.